wonderful people all over this country. She is a beautiful
Guyana will become the next Dubai, and we, the citizens of Guyana, are super excited to benefit from our homeland the same way the citizens of Dubai benefit from theirs.
This is what life is like for citizens from the Emirate of Dubai.
Guyana will become the next Dubai.
with wonderful people all over this country. She is a beautiful Guyana.
A very good evening to our viewers on Globespan 24/7 as we come to you from New York, from Guyana, and from China tonight as we bring you our Monday night program. We want to thank Nohar Singh for making this platform available, and of course to Ryan Gobin, our technical specialist tonight. We want to thank your audience for joining us and all our sponsors who keep this program going. We want to encourage you to keep being part of the program. As we speak tonight, we know the Christians start celebrate their Holy Week. Yesterday being Palm Sunday, we want to wish all Christians a very happy Holy Week, and then that leads into Good Friday, and then of course Easter Sunday. And of course, in Guyana, we have Good Friday and Easter Monday off, so we have so much fun there. The Muslim community continue to celebrate Ramadan. I think today is the 12th day of Ramadan, so we want to wish also the Muslim community all the best. Tonight, we have two of Guyana's outstanding young men, and we are so proud to have them on the program tonight. And we want to discuss the importance of education. And the question is, are youths being left out of Guyana's development? And who else can lead us on that discussion tonight? The president of the University of Guyana Student Association, Mr. Shaquawn Gill. Mr. Gill, welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm extremely grateful for it and excited to see where this discussion goes.
Yeah, wonderful. And of course, a young man who heads the youth arm of one of the largest organization or one of the oldest organizations in Guyana, Mr. Kleber Gibson. Mr. Gibson, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sugrim, and thank you for having me on this evening's program.
And of course, with me, my co-host, Dr. Rose, welcome.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome, guys, to the program. Hope we have a very good discussion tonight.
So, gentlemen, before we talk about the program, let's talk about your own life. I know, Mr. Gill, you're in China right now, and I know it's Tuesday morning in China. It's Monday night here in the East Coast of the United States, and of course in Guyana and Trinidad and so on. So tell us something about the University of Guyana. You represent the Student Association. Tell us what make up that association and what's going on at UG.
So thank you for the question. The University of Guyana Student Society is the largest organization and practically one of the only organizations that really represents the interests of students in Guyana. As you know, the University of Guyana is the premier institution in terms of tertiary education in Guyana, and it represents some 10,000 students that are currently attending the University of Guyana. Our purpose as the UGSS, or the University of Guyana Student Society, and it is inscripted in our constitution, is to represent the concrete opinion of the students of the University of Guyana. And so this particular council, which is elected every year, is focusing on 5 pillars of action to do that after extensive student engagement and understanding the needs and desires of the students, especially coming out of the pandemic and operating in a virtual environment. We're operating on 5 pillars of action that we're hoping to implement. And hopefully I'll be able to share a few of those plans. But really the UGSS is that body that when issues arise, we are there to provide the voice that students usually may not have at the highest levels. And we are basically that intermediary. But not just that, this council has worked and is continuing to work to take it a step forward or a step further in being a bit more proactive with the work that we do. So not just waiting for issues to come, but to implement policies and programs that can also benefit the lives of students, both in their academic arenas and even in general life as well. And so that's what we're working to do.
Well said, and we will look forward to a discussion on UG Student Association later on tonight. Mr. Gibson, you had the youth arm of a body that has been in Guyana for many, many years. You want to tell us exactly what the youth arm is and what your body is and what is the purpose of this organization?
Sure thing, Charles. Well, first of all, I'm the president of the Rotaract Club of Georgetown. And Rotaract is the youth arm of the Rotary International family and Rotary clubs. Rotaract is actually Rotary in Action. The Rotaract Club of Georgetown has been in existence since 1985. We're one of the oldest youth-led voluntary service clubs, and to date we've executed hundreds of projects over the years in various communities. We not only focus on community initiatives that benefits residents of the different community, but we also have professional development for our members. It's an opportunity for them to enhance their skills and knowledge that they can take into their professional and their personal lives. Rotaract over the years has been growing in terms of membership. We not only have our pinned Rotaractors, as we say, but we also have a lot of guests and partners that support the projects and the work that we do throughout the year.
We heard Mr. Gill says UG Student Association have about 10 to 12,000 students or somewhere on that number. How many young people are in the Rotaract in Guyana?
Hard to say, maybe a couple hundreds, because membership tends to fluctuate, but across the district and across the different districts in the world, Rotaractors number in the thousands.
And you guys have international meetings and so on. And what are some of the specific things that the youth arm does to enhance the lives of young people in Guyana?
Well, for example, Rotaract, in terms of each club, we're divided into committees. So we have community service that focuses on the community service aspect, implementing projects and so forth. We have a professional development committee that does various projects that enhances the professional skill set of our members and members of the public based on the project that we're implementing at the time. But we're not just limited to Guyana. As a matter of fact, Rotaract clubs in Guyana falls under what's called District 7 to 30, which spans countries from the ABC Islands right down to French Guyana.
So what's the structure of the Rotaract youth, Rotaract arm? What's the structure of the organization?
Well, like any formal organization, we have a bylaw, which is sort of our constitution that guides how we operate. We have elections annually where we elect a board to implement a set of plans and objectives. And of course, we do this in close tandem with Rotary, our Rotary clubs, and the Rotary district team. So it's not just about us deciding what we want to do, but there's some sort of structure, there's specific goals. This year, we're focusing big on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this year, Rotary International also has its first female president, our President Jennifer Jones.
Mr. Gill, in terms of UG, what's the structure like an association at UG?
So the structure, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we have a constitution that has been there since 1973, I believe, and we operate in the essence and structure of a president and an executive council, or an administrative body rather, and then an executive council that comprise faculty representatives, 2 faculty representatives from each of the faculty. So right now, the administrative body and the executive council spans some 31 people, 29 to 31 people right now that represent that.
I know student association, and here in the US, they call it student council, student association, student union, whatever name you call it. I know they have tremendous power. When I went to college here in the US, I was actually fortunate to be part of the student government, and I was vice president of the student government in my year before I graduated. And I know student government removed vice president of the university. That kind of authority that they have, the power. Is the student council at UG, do they have that kind of power and authority?
I believe that the students of the University of Guyana are the people that have that power realistically. And what the council really does is when, and I can give you examples when there were significant issues with gradings and with lecturers who wanted to stand resolute in a position that they may not have or they should not have. The student society has stepped in and corrected those issues on behalf of those students, and that is the function or the way in which we function. I can tell you that I see no need for us to remove our vice president or our vice chancellor who has been
No,
doing
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
job.
that. I'm just please don't take that way. What I'm saying is that the council have so much. What I think students don't quite understand, maybe sometimes, that the council is a conduit between the administration and the students. So through that student council, they do have a lot of say in the administration of the university, and that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I can tell you that the students of the society now are confident in the council that they have. Students write us and message us on a daily basis not because there are a million issues or because the university is flooded with issues, but because they know that the council is there to help. One of our mantras is to be committed to serve, and we have been exemplifying that in every single thing we do, and it's going to be exhibited throughout our year.
So the composition of the council, is it like every faculty student have a representative on that faculty, and then there's overall student? How is the election held here in terms of the composition of the council?
Right. So the electoral process is done like this. There's nomination day, and students are nominated. I think 3 people have to nominate them for faculty representative. There can be 3 faculty representatives per faculty. You are, I think 3 people from your faculty have to nominate you. When that's done, you submit your name, and then the people within your faculty on elections day see the entire list of persons that have been nominated, and then they vote for the persons that they want to represent them. Of course, the person with the highest votes, the second and the third, they're the persons that are elected to serve on the council, and that happens for every faculty. The presidency, however, is an election that runs differently. So people run for president. They run for president, and that is how that is operated. After that is done, though, and the electoral and the body in its raw form is elected, everybody comes together, and then they do the internal elections to have vice president, senior vice president, junior vice president, secretary, treasurer, and all of the other administrative posts that are
okay. There. So the student body collectively elect that, but the president runs throughout the university for that position.
Right, throughout the university, yeah.
Okay, it's a little different
but the
here.
president is elected by the student body as well. The president is elected by the student body as well.
Okay. Dr. Rose?
Yes, both of you all presented to us a pretty good background of the organization and everything else. Now, let me turn to politics a little just for a few questions. Is any one of you a member of any political party? If yes, don't tell us the name of the party.
No, not for me, not a member.
No, I'm not a member of a political party.
And why is that?
I'm not a member of a political party because one of the main reasons is because the post that I have is an apolitical post, and I don't intend to appear as a partisan individual when I'm representing the rights of thousands of students who may not think and feel the same way that I do, and I don't want them to feel that I, because of their affiliation, and you understand how Guyana's politics works, because of my affiliation, I may not serve them in the best capacity. And so that's one of the reasons.
Very good, very good. I'm proud of you for that answer. What about you, Mr. Gibson?
Like Shaquawn, given my current role, I also don't. It's not wise that I align myself to any political party, even though I have political ambitions. I'm currently employed at one of the diplomatic missions here in Guyana, so definitely me aligning myself to a political party is a no-no, or it would definitely be frowned upon, I should say. As I'm here not to represent one side, but to ensure that Guyana benefits in its relations with a particular country.
I'll get to the topic later, but I just want to have some feedback. You know how the people vote in Guyana? Do you think the voting pattern will ever change in Guyana? Would would people vote on issues rather than race-based party politics? Do you think, Mr. Gibson?
I strongly, oh, Mr. Gibson, go ahead.
No, no, you can go ahead. Go ahead.
I strongly believe that that will happen, and I'll tell you why. The youth population of Guyana has taken a completely different approach to race and to leadership that I feel is transformational. And I say that on the basis that racism in many factors of our youth society is not something that trumps everything else. I believe now in our young population, people are looking at others for who they are rather than what they look like. And if we can do that in our own personal relationships, and if you've been in Guyana, you can recognize as well that the interracial relationships have skyrocketed, and that is not something that has been that way for forever. And I believe if we can do that in our personal relationships, we can see that from a public perspective as well, and recognize that this is not a racial thing, but it's more about who can do better for the country at the end of the day.
What about you, Mr. Gibson?
Definitely, yes. I think there will come a point in time when Guyana no longer votes race. And I think we're already shifting to that era. Gone are the days where I think that as young people, we vote the way our parents vote or the way our grandparents vote. And I personally can say that I have not encountered a colleague of mine a similar age in the youth demographic that has displayed some amount of racism, or say I only have friends of a particular ethnicity or so forth. They're very open-minded. Like Shaquawn said, interracial relations in Ghana has skyrocketed. Like, it's no longer just you're limited as an Indo-Guyanese, I'm only going to marry this or I'm only going to marry that. But young people are, quote unquote, wising up. We are being open-minded. So yeah, definitely we're very close to us moving away from voting along racial lines.
And if I can say, Doctor, before you go, mind you, my comments, and I believe Mr. Gibson's comments, do not negate the fact that to some extent racism still exists. And it doesn't negate the fact that there are some sections of society that continue to perpetuate racism and an ideology that they are being discriminated or being looked at differently, and they should look at people differently because people are looking at them differently. There is still that in our society. But what I'm saying is there is a stronger drive to move away from that. And though more can be done, I think we are heading in the right direction.
Okay, very good. Now, youths, as you all know, make up at least 65% of Guyana's population, at age 35 and under. Now, do you think the youths in Guyana are being treated fairly by past governments, by this government, in the sense that they're giving opportunities to explore and use their skills and talents to work in various areas based on their qualification and experience? Mr. Gibson?
If I look at the track record of previous governments, I would say no. But if I look at and this is me taking an objective approach based on supporting evidence. If I look at the track record of the current administration, I'm inclined to say yes. Reason being that we see government making intentional decisions to include youth in their policies and programs. We see the establishment only less than a year ago of the President's Youth Advisory Council, another excellent step towards including youth. And we see a host of programs that are implemented almost weekly that seeks to build the capacity and the skill set of youths in our country. Because at the end of the day, no matter what sort of development trajectory you want for your country, if you don't develop the human resource, then you're not going to get anywhere. So I'm going to have to say yes to the current one doing a lot. There can be more done. Everybody's going to say they can do more, but they're definitely trying.
Okay. Mr. Gill?
The first response to that question for me will come on the simple basis of what our leaders look like from the front. And in the most apolitical manner that I can say this, if you look at the previous administration's composition of the cabinet, compared to this composition of the cabinet, from that, looking at that, I can say that shows there is some indication that young people ought to be involved, and there is a desire for young people to be involved. Apart from that, Mr. Gibson, I believe, hit it right on the nail as it relates to youth involvement. Not only not only are there avenues that are being made through government for young people to be involved, but there's also the important component and the credit that we have to give to our young people now that they actually do want to be involved. And that's why, for the first time ever this year, we saw an entire girls' youth parliament happening a few weeks ago, where young women from across the country participated in a format of parliament because they want to be a part of leadership. They want to see what leadership is like, and opportunities are being provided for that. Apart from that, in the economic development of Guyana, one of the important components of that is ensuring that people are educated, and I think Mr. Gibson spoke extensively on that, developing your human resources, and that's why we're seeing young people taking up the opportunities of gold scholarships, with 13,000 plus people already receiving scholarships. The Board of Industrial Training, people are there getting the opportunity to get vocational training. The President's Youth Advisory Council, though organized, I can say objectively too, I feel should be doing some more work publicly, at least, in terms of representing the interest of young people. And I would really love to see the Youth Advisory Council, who I know on that council have really talented people, but I would really love to see them do more in terms of representation too.
Okay. Cost of living is very high in Guyana. How is it affecting UG students and the youth in general?
So prior to my assumption of office as president of UGSS, one of the major concerns that students have raised was the facilities fee. What the University of Guyana did, through the advocacy of the former council, was to reduce the miscellaneous fee to $25,000 when it was $50,000 before. After things, I guess, calmed down a little bit as it relates to COVID-19, the University of Guyana reinstituted the fee, or replaced the fee, returned the fee to $50,000. And students have complained about that. What the council is doing and has committed to do, I can say even before election, was to organize and set up a committee that would look extensively at the miscellaneous fee to see the areas in which we could reduce it so that some comfort can be brought to the students. We have a lot of students now who are working and who have taken up other responsibilities as a result of the pandemic. They've launched into other aspects of their life very early, and so they have more responsibilities. And so what the council committed to do, and I committed to do before presidency, was to set up that committee that would look at the miscellaneous fee and identify ways we can reduce. I am happy to say that only last week we submitted a proposal to the University of Guyana through the registrar for the reduction of the badge fee and the implementation of a new system that will see students not having to pay a badge fee every single time they have to renew their badge when that's reinstituted. So that is going to be a significant development that we're hoping to have implemented, and will reduce to some extent the fees that university students have to pay.
You, Mr. Gibson?
I'm going to have to start by just frankly saying that inflation is definitely doing a number. Even if it may not be affecting me, it's certainly affecting a lot of youths out there, because we all know the cost of living is going up, not just in Guyana, but across the world. And at the age where a person is exiting high school and looking to go into university, inflation is definitely not helping that situation. Because one, University of Guyana is not free, even though it being free and open to all is a commitment that's been made by government. But at the same time, coming from a family that may not be able to afford much, let's say, you want to attend the University of Guyana, costs are up, you're not getting a job, you're home, you want to attend UG. The fact that you have to find, even if you're going to get a student loan and you want to save for that miscellaneous fee that's now back to $50,000, it's really hard, because if you're not coming out of high school and earning 100 and something thousand, you might get less than 100,000, and you still have to find that facility fee for that year. You may still have to contribute to your family's bills. So I'd say inflation is definitely not helping, and we can surely see, or we would like to see, more coming out of the University of Guyana's administration and their leadership in terms of doing something to reduce that facility fee. And I have to commend Mr. Gill and his council for getting the ball rolling and hitting the ground running in that regard.
Okay, let me ask you one question before my colleague comes on. Average tuition fee at UG, taking into consideration the hard courses, science courses, and the soft science courses, and amalgamate them and tell me what's the average cost for tuition fee per year?
If you take med science and law into consideration, you're looking at somewhere around $400,000 a year.
Okay.
If you take those, let's say $350 a year. If you take those courses into consideration.
And the soft science, like psychology, sociology, and those courses?
To something, I think about
I won't estimate. I'm not sure directly.
It's about
how much
290 something, if my memory serves.
Almost 300,000. Okay. Okay. Charles?
Gentlemen, I like your answer with Dr. Rose asking about the politics of the young people. And I've had the privilege to interview some of the young people within the PPP and also in the PNC. And what we were told, and I asked the point blank question, why do you, as an Indo-Guyanese or Guyanese of Indian descent, I like to say it, go to become a part of the PPP and not part of the PNC? And similarly, I asked the young people of African descent, why do you go and join the PNC, the youth arm, and not the PPP? And of course, you get all the different answers. And as you two gentlemen said, it's changing now, and we really hope that it's changing. But I want to put both of you on the spot. Today, we're talking about education, right? The importance of education. The Hindus in Guyana just celebrated Pagua. Mr. Gibson, what caused the Hindu to celebrate a festival of Pagua?
If my memory serves me right, Pagua, or as holy as we say, is the celebration of light or good over evil. The colors, of course, of the different powders and so forth, I believe, celebrates that spirit or that triumph of good over evil.
Okay, good. Talking, Mr. Gill. What is your view? The Hindus celebrate Pagua.
The Hindus celebrating Pagua, in and of itself, has a lot of meanings, and those meanings, of course, are necessary for their religion and their relationship with God. But like Mr. Gibson says, it is definitely an important faction of the makeup of our society. It represents the fact that not only do we have Christians and Muslims in our society that can have freedom of speech and religious liberty, but our Hindus are able to express that through the celebration of Pagua, through having the opportunity to have an entire day where they can meet with each other, rub those powders on their friends' faces, and be able to take that time to meet with each other and have those discussions about how we can go forward, how good can continue to triumph over evil, and how we would be able to, develop our society in a manner that promotes love and peace and harmony.
I like your answers, except Mr. Gibson. The one about light over darkness is really the celebration of Diwali, when they talk about light and so on. But you're on the right track. But basically, it was the Hindu festival, Prahalad. It was he had a bad. He was a very righteous man, and then he was set on fire with his our father sister, we call him Pua in the Indian culture, and Kekahi was his Pua, and the they burned together in the fire, and she burnt, and he came out of the fire, like in the same thing like in the Bible talk about Daniel in the lion's den, and the three men, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, in the fire, and they came out unharmed. So there's a lot of comparison with, or similarities, so to speak, with religion, except we interpret them totally different. But it's really a beautiful thing, and that's why I'm glad you young people, at least you have an idea of what it is, even though it's not part of your culture as we speak. But in terms of education, do you see the young people getting, and Mr. Gibson, and both of you, Mr. Gibson, Mr. Gill, you mentioned that the current administration is much more open to young people. Do you see there's an influx of young people into the administration, or do you see the young people decide, you know what, we need to have a new beginning and start a movement on your own? Which one, or even joining the opposition? I mean, I don't want to leave the opposition out. Which direction you think our young people might be taking in the not too distant future?
If I can go, I believe our young people are looking for development at the end of the day. And whichever direction that development and progress comes from, that is where our young people are heading. It is evident in the fact, or in situations where you see the vice president entering particular communities who historically have not supported his administration, but being able to be there, and the massive crowds of Afro-Guyanese descent, of Amerindian descent, being there not because they want to look fancy and dress up nice and be with the vice president, but because they see an opportunity for development. They see an opportunity where they can go and better their lives, and that is what our young people are looking for. And whoever it is that is capable of not just making those promises but delivering on them, that is where our young people are going. And that is I think is the tremendous thing, because at that point we look at results, we look at who delivers as opposed to what you look like, and it's evident in that regard.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes, like Shaquawn said, I mean, young people right now in Ghana are definitely moving in the direction of development. And if that development is coming from the PPP, they're moving there. But to answer your question, Mr. Sugrim, I don't see a lot of youths looking to start their own movement or start their own political party, but I would definitely say that there seems to be an influx of youth into the ruling party. There are definitely new faces. Every time you look at these committees, look at these new boards, the composition of these different groupings, there are definitely a lot of fresh faces, vibrant faces that are not the traditional leaders from the past, from the 90s and the early 2000s and the 80s and the 70s. So we're definitely seeing young people moving towards development and choosing the one that delivers for them and the one that shows results, as Shaquawn would have mentioned.
And do you think, in the young people's view, that this accusation of being left out or being discriminatory, is that a fact, or is it that it's a perception that they think that there is discrimination, I'm left out of the equation? What are young people's view on that, in that aspect? Mr. Gibson, you can start.
I would definitely say it seems to be a perception. It's not a fact. Of course, you can't please everybody. You implement one program, you implement two programs, you're not going to please everyone, because what benefits me or what works for me as a youth may not work for somebody from another community, somebody from another geographic region. But I can say the government is definitely trying, this current administration, and persons are seeing the results. The government is not going to be perfect. The government's not going to be perfect, but we're seeing them try. We're seeing them do more than previous administrations. And we're just about 3 years in, or 2.5 years. So I think we've still got another 2.5 years to go, and we can definitely still give them some time, even though they may not have been able to deliver on all of their manifesto promises to date.
Mr. Gill?
Yeah. if I'm to address first the idea of discrimination, discrimination has not disappeared. It hasn't disappeared, and racism too. It hasn't disappeared in Guyana or anywhere else. Um, and of course, there are going to be instances where people feel as though they have been rejected on a basis that they should not be rejected upon. And there should be more work to address that. But in relation to being left out, in my personal capacity, I've always said that I simply can't tolerate an idea of somebody thinking that they are left out or Guyana's development is not for them. In an environment of technological advancement, in the place where we are now in relation to how easy information is to access, it is almost illogical to believe an excuse that somebody didn't know and they didn't see it, and they didn't, it's not for them. That kind of idea, to me, and this is in my personal capacity, I strongly believe this, many times only speaks to lethargy and a lackadaisical attitude to development. And we haven't been seeing that in a lot of our young people. But in some instances, there are people that just don't want to go out and get. But if you are truly desirous of developing your life and desirous of changing the trajectory of your life and those that are coming after you, those opportunities are widely available, widely present, widely public. And so to say that you are being left out, many times for a lot of young people is of their own accord and not because of the fact that opportunities are not available.
And gentlemen, I mean, you guys are pretty young. You guys are, kids, so to speak. We're of the older generation. And over my lifetime, I have never seen a president as energetic as our current president. And I think the young people, if they're looking at a leader, I think our president, the current president, is really giving that leadership in terms of reaching out. Now, my question is, but also having said that, people like to see someone of their ethnic group part of the decision-making process. And all ethnic group in Guyana have the ability. I don't care who you are, where you came from, there are abilities in every group in Guyana. I make a recommendation, and I said we had an issue of GCOM. And GCOM staff, as both of you will know, is predominantly of African origin, most of the staff there. And I have nothing against, being the staff there. But what I was saying, as a premium body that takes care of election, do you think, in your view, and I'm looking at it in a broader context, that the composition of staff in government institutions and government offices and boards and everything else should reflect the composition of our population, ethnic-wise? What do you think, Mr. Gill?
Of course it should. But how do you measure that? What do you do to measure that? And how sustainable will it be to always have that kind of hard, fast rule in terms of composition? It may be very difficult to do so. And I think if we continue to look through things from an ethnic perspective or through an ethnic lens, many times we would see something wrong with everything that's happening. And I see that a lot, and I can say this personally in the Afro-Guyanese society, where if or when a lot of people don't look like us, automatically it suddenly doesn't become something for us. And until we can change that perspective, and until we can go after it and then get our own experience to say, well, I've attempted this thing and I've seen that there is some amount of discrimination for me because of the way I look, until we can do that and firmly say that, then it only is a perception and an idea that is only robbing us of the opportunities that we should be a part of and we should take full advantage of.
Mr. Gibson?
To say the least, I think that's something that's going to be difficult to achieve, and I wouldn't even embark on us or attempt or say for us to attempt that, because at the end of the day, it may be easy to do so and have the composition of certain boards and certain statutory bodies reflect the ethnic makeup of the population as a whole. However, when you try to pass that down to the makeup of the public sector, the general staffing of a particular ministry or the general staffing of a particular government agency, it will be difficult, and you're going to hear cries of discrimination. Because in the hiring process, are you going to say that, oh, we have a position for a clerical officer, but you know what? We got 40% of the clerical staff are already Indo-Guyanese,
right.
and we have 40% are already Afro-Guyanese. So then we can only hire a Chinese. That opens you up to discrimination right there. At the end of the day, I believe the persons should be hired on the basis of their qualifications and their skill set and what they bring to the job. Yes, at the director level, at the managerial level, we can have the composition reflect whatever's in the population, but to have it applied to the rest of the staffing is quite difficult. And you're going to hear cries of discrimination, and it's not going to please one group. It may not please all the groups, and you're just setting yourself up for chaos.
Excellent. I have a question from one of your fellow young people, Colin Haynes. He said, is there a time that has come for youth to embrace social, political, and economic modernization? And if so, how should this look like? Mr. Gill, you want to take it?
Sure. I believe that at the basis of any country's development or even modernization, democracy has to be that foundation. It has to be the framework, the thing that sets the tone for everything else that happens. And so what we have to ensure here in Guyana, even as young people continue to take up the reins, and I encourage this within my council as far as possible. We have a number of subcommittees that do a lot of work, and I tell the chairs of those committees, ensure that every decision that you make is done in consultation with everybody within your committee. Everybody's not going to agree. Everybody's not going to feel the same way about a decision, but ensure that democracy persists. When you ask the questions, you hear views, you take votes, and so the majority always allows things to go forward. And then you deal with the consequences, whether good or bad, of the decision that the majority made. And so even within that committee idea, on the public sphere, it also has to be the same thing, ensuring that we respect the rights of the majority. We ensure that at the basis of everything that we do, there is consultation, there is engagement, there is ensuring that the people's voices are heard. And that is the basis and epitome of what development will look like and continue to look like. We can't sit in isolation and attempt to make decisions and propose ideas and motions and bills at the level of the National Assembly. We have to be able to come to the people, hear the concerns and challenges of the people, and as leaders and policymakers, craft policies and legislation that will assist those people in the hardships that they may be facing.
Excellent response there. Mr. Gibson, I don't know if you want to answer that question, or I want to ask you something else in case you want to add to that. Are the institutions failing our youths? This is again another question from Mr. Colin Haynes. Are the institutions failing our youths? Mr. Gibson?
I say yes and no. More can be done, but there's always more that can be done. But on the issue of the initial question, it's an affirmative yes. However, civic engagement is important. And civic engagement does not just come from at the level of politicians interacting, but we as citizens, we as community leaders and youths need to get up and get out and interact with our leaders and have our voices heard. Last year, I had the opportunity to complete a U.S. State Department exchange program in the U.S., and I spent some time at Georgetown University and University of Virginia Center for Politics. And the focus of that particular program was civic engagement on 3 pillars: debate, discuss, compromise. At the heart of government, I learned that at the end of the day, everything you do requires a consultative process. Because if you don't consult, persons will feel left out. they're going to feel that their voices were not heard. They're going to feel that they did not get the opportunity to make their contribution to your policies. And many times, as policymakers, you can think that you know what's best. You have your fancy degree or you have your experience in government. But when you sit down with the average person, you're able to see how your policies affect their lives. Because there are a lot of good programs implemented by government every year, every day, every week. But sometimes even the best of programs does not affect or impact each and every citizen. And we got to think about those persons that are outside of the system also.
Excellent.
I'm happy
Gentlemen,
to know, Mr. Sugrim.
Yeah, go on.
I'm happy to know, Mr. Sugrim, which institutions, I would be happy to know which institutions the individual that you refer to is speaking about. I would be happy to know what exactly.
Oh, he didn't say which one. He said if any institution in Guyana is failing our youths. He was very broad in terms of our institution. So, yeah, he wasn't very specific.
Yeah. Okay.
What I want to ask you, gentlemen, I've been communicating with Wanda Radzik. She's being a woman advocate in Guyana. And you know, she took court the Houston institution there, and they won. What is missing? I'm not seeing the youth supporting the women movement in protesting things like these. Why is that so?
I believe that is an individual instance. I wouldn't say that women aren't being supported, and I say that on the simple basis of what I've referenced prior to. For the first time ever in Guyana, there was a women's parliament where young women were able to come together and have discussions on national issues. And not just that, but our young women are also taking up positions in government that we've never seen before, and are leading from the front in that regard. But apart from the government structure, the civil society organizations and the youth organizations, especially those that I've had contact with, are to a large extent comprised of young women and who have the opportunity to raise their voices and concerns. What I think, though, is that our young women now are more concerned or direct their energies into things like sex education, parental counseling, psychology, mental health, things of that nature. The advocacy for that has skyrocketed tremendously, and it's coming from our young people, especially our young women. So I believe that might be an isolated incident.
Okay, Mr. Gibson.
Like Shaquawn said, it's definitely. I think that's an isolated case, because I do see young women, I see youths in general supporting different causes. But we got to remember too that the onus is not just on youths and young women and young girls to find a cause and also support that aside from their own whatever they may be pursuing. It's also on the responsibility also lies with a person that's going after a particular issue to also mobilize and galvanize support for what you're advocating for. Girls Assemble, as Shaquawn would have mentioned, that's one of the more recent successes in terms of mobilizing girls in government, girls in leadership positions, so they can have an understanding of leadership at that level and at the parliamentary level. But to say that youths are not supporting these causes, it's really not reflective of the reality. And that's
okay. Before Dr. Rose comes on, one question I want to ask you guys: should the oil contract be renegotiated? What are you saying about that? What is the youth saying? Come on, I want the youth perspective. Mr.
Gibson, you have a lot of experience in international relations.
I'm not going to say as what the youths are saying, because I'm really not certain. I think the view is really diverse. But personally, in my opinion, I say no. The reason why I say no is that at the end of the day, we have to also respect the sanctity of contracts. Because what does it say about Guyana? What does it say about any government that's going to enter into an oil contract, and then 5 years later down the line, government changes or for whatever reason, you now have the ability as a government to back out of that contract. Then that's the point of a contract, to hold both parties accountable to a set of agreed terms and conditions. Now, if you want to renegotiate, or you want to negotiate rather future contracts, then sure, go ahead. That's a government's prerogative. Whatever the people want, the people should get. You want 20% royalty, you want 50% royalty, ask for it. But for us to go back and say, you know what, we're no longer going to give you 2%, we want 20%. How can companies be expected to have some sort of expectation of security, stability in their business operations if countries will just, or have the opportunity or the ability to renegotiate their oil contracts? It's really not a good look on Guyana, to say.
Mr. Gill, before you come on, Mr. Gill, before you come on, sorry, Mr. Gibson, we have read in the newspaper that Exxon actually hold Guyana at ransom to sign that contract. Was it a good contract in your view?
Definitely a lot more could have been negotiated for Guyana at the time, at least knowing what we know now. I would say no, but again, it's a contract. The only thing I would say we can do is, unless Exxon is willing as the other party in this contract to open themselves up for renegotiation, then yes. But again, for us to want and demand renegotiation, I can't support that.
Mr. Gill, first,
Right,
two things. Do you think a good contract was signed by the former government, and should it be renegotiated?
The only way we can determine whether or not it was a good contract is if we identify what the other avenues and options were. That information is scarce. It has only come from another political party, and it can be jaundiced. So it's hard to say on that in that regard. In terms of renegotiation, though, I can tell you, and in consensus with Mr. Gibson, it shows political maturity. In my opinion, it has to show political maturity. No company is going to invest in any country. No company is going to collaborate with any other company if every time the leadership position changes, the ideology and perspective and contractual obligations change as well. Because if you're going to shift with the wind like that, it's not, the political climate is not clear. And so the idea of renegotiating the contract, though we may want more and we want better and we want more money for our country and all that kind of stuff, is synonymous with an idea of and I say this quite frankly with no regrets, of going to the parliament and asking for every citizen to get $1 million or something like that from the oil money. It's the same thing. You can't sacrifice future development on the basis of temporary gratification. And I think it's political maturity in that regard. That's point one. Secondly, I want to say too that I think the media has to do a far better job in terms of the reporting of information as it relates to oil. We have significantly misconstrued information. The media has significantly misconstrued information, and it is leading our young people astray to the point where they themselves have, as we would say in young people terms, have logged out from everything that is happening in terms of oil and gas, other than the fact that we know that Exxon is pumping billions of barrels of oil a day. We don't want to get involved because the thing has become so complex. It has become so marred by different perspectives and quite frankly perspectives that should not even exist. Young people have just decided not to even care about it, and that is where you're going to have a significant issue in the future, in going forward, and in terms of further development for Guyana. Because if we don't pay a keen attention to what is happening, we can't hold government accountable. We can't hold ExxonMobil accountable. We can't hold any of the organizations or companies that are participating in our oil and gas industry accountable. And so I think that is something to take into serious consideration and to call out the media specifically as young people going forward on what they're doing in relation to the oil and gas and the reporting on the oil and gas industry.
But gentlemen, you guys have not brought up an important point. Should contract of this magnitude and any future contract, currently right now, the current government is also negotiating contract with Exxon to do different things. Should those contracts be ratified by our parliament before any government sign off on them?
The negotiation of contracts especially those, as far as I know, that come through single sourcing, and don't have to go through a whole procurement method and things of that nature. I believe that there obviously should be involvement in terms of the opposition being a part of the discussions that are necessary going forward, of course. And so, in whatever mechanism or framework that the opposition can be part of that, of course, they should be a part of that. But I think the parliament is there for legislative purposes, for the implementation of laws and policies of that regard. If questions want to be asked, however, the parliamentary opposition has a duty and responsibility to ask those questions. They definitely have, and as a matter of fact, that is what the parliament is the National Assembly is there for. So once information is publicly available, or quite frankly, if it's not available, the parliamentary opposition has under their remit and is their duty to ask the questions that the nation wants to know. And the only way that can happen is if the parliamentary opposition is educated and informed about what's happening in that particular sector.
All right, Mr. Gibson, you talk about sanctity of contract, but you know that when the coalition signed a contract, the parliament no one knew when this contract was even signed. So how can we have input into a contract that is so big for our country, the biggest contract we have ever signed, a lopsided contract, but yet we have to keep it because we talk about sanctity of contract? Shouldn't Parliament be part of that agreement? And future contract going forward, Parliament should at least ratify them before it's signed by the existing government?
It's definitely a learning lesson for all of us. But I have to say, yes, I think the Parliament definitely needs to have some sort of oversight role. But remember, the problem with that is that at the end of the day, the government of the day also currently holds the majority. And at that time, the government of that day also held the majority. So what little does it do for the need for Parliament to ratify a contract when it's going to be pushed through anyway? There's a saying that they like to repeat in Parliament, and I've heard it here, that you can have your say, but I will have my way. So at the end of the day, yes, we can call for government to go to the Parliament before they're able to sign these contracts. But if the government has the majority, then really it doesn't help the situation. But I do believe that the parliamentary opposition should have an input in the negotiation talks. There should be some sort of parliamentary standing committee or some sort of committee or oversight body that has a say in reviewing that contract before government signs it. So even if at the end of the day, the opposition is not able to stop the signing of that contract, they can at least have their views on record, how they feel about that particular contract.
Dr. Rose?
Yes, you guys are brilliant. I don't know where I went wrong in my education. I really don't. But let me ask you this question, and it pertains to education. Can you tell our listeners, especially our youths, why education is important? Mr. Gibson?
Education is the one thing that can't be taken away from you. I'm going to say that.
True.
Because they can take your life. I mean, that's the only way. But at the end of the day, when you put the effort and the resources into educating yourself, you're going to see how your life changes. Because it's one thing to discount you on account of your ethnicity or whatever. But when you have, or you're able to show persons your value and your contribution to the table and what you bring to a particular setting or an organization or a country, it's really hard to discount that. And I cannot stress enough the importance of education. From the time I came out, I was in fourth form. I already knew what I wanted to do with my life. I knew exactly what courses I wanted to study, what roles I want to hold, and it's all part of a plan. I'm going to say to any young person, it's so important to have a plan. It's so important to have a goal. When you wake up in the morning, it should be one of the first things you think about. When you go to bed at night, it should be one of the last things you think about. And for me, that goal is my political ambitions. I know exactly what I want, even though some may say, oh, but you're spending all this money in education, you're putting all this effort, but you want to become a minister of government for just like 5,000 US a month. If I listen to them, and if our current crop of leaders listen to people like that, then our country is not going to get anywhere. So it's about focusing on your goals, focusing on what you want out of life, and sticking by that.
Mr. Gill?
Thank you. I believe strongly in life. Everything that we do should be done for a purpose. Should be done based or on the premise of achieving a goal that ultimately betters the world and the environment that everybody gets to live in. In our current society and in the global landscape, in order for you to accomplish that purpose, and that purpose, by the way, doesn't necessarily have to be in leadership. It's in any facet, in accounting, in the health sector, in teaching, whatever it might be. But in order to truly maximize and fulfill your purpose, one of the pit stops that you have to make is ensuring, first of all, that you are fully equipped to assist others with the things that they need to be assisted with. I think our purpose in life, and especially as a Christian, I strongly hold on to the fact that we are here not to be served, but to serve. And if we are going to fulfill that particular obligation that is given to us in our lives, we have to first educate ourselves and input into ourselves what is necessary for us going forward. I want to say too that, and this is for public knowledge. Any development or upskilling or upgrading in life, standard of living and quality of life, any upgrading, especially in our job market today, is premised on education and the amount of education, qualification, and experience that you have. You can't want to sit at home and expect a job that pays you significantly enough for you to get a new house and a nice vessel and thing. You can't expect to get those things, I don't know, by sitting home and expecting it to drop in your lap. It comes from hard work. It comes from ensuring that you are qualified. And if everybody is going to the market to get a job, to get employed, to get involved, and they have qualifications too, the job market becomes much tighter. It becomes harder for you to get in. It's more complex for you to get at the position that you want to. And so it's important that you continue educating yourself. You continue putting yourself in spaces and places where you can network and show the fact that you have a worth within you that is bigger than your educate, that may be bigger than the certificate that you have, and show that you are a people person. And it's important that those two things come hand in hand. So the education in terms of the qualification and that particular requirement, and also ensuring that you can network, you can meet with people, you can hear people's concerns and opinions, and share friendships and relationships with people. And that is how you go forward. And I believe if every young person is to apply those things to their life, building their qualifications and educational capacity, as well as building their personal capacity and networking with others, then we have success very, very close in our future.
You guys are UG products, right? I have to come and enroll at UG to be like you guys. Because somewhere I'm missing out on something. Now, the next question I want to ask you guys is this. Do you think the Ministry of Education currently is doing a good job in advancing education in Guyana? You, Mr. Gill.
Significantly. I say that because, and this is information that I have, so I know this. Only recently I saw the Minister of Education in a far-flung community, I think it was in Region 8, deciding upon land in which a new secondary school is to be built. And that is an example of everything else that is transpiring in other parts of the world, of the country, because universal education is important, ensuring people have access to education, and particularly our young people, the next generation, so that they don't have to rely on the traditional forms of labor and the traditional forms of employment, and they can broaden their horizon on the things that they can do. And so if we're going to talk about the impact that is coming out, or that the Ministry of Education is having on education in our country, we have to look at, first of all, the access of education. So the construction of new schools, the rehabilitation of other schools, and implementing smart classrooms and all of these things is definitely a plus. You have to look at quality of education as well as access to education as well as the quality of education. And you have to ask yourself, where are we in terms of the quality of education that we are receiving? Many people disagree in that regard. I know that for sure. A lot of people feel as though the quality of education that we are receiving may not be the best. But I do believe that our teachers within the Ministry of Education are doing a tremendous job in terms of the delivery of education and ensuring that education is filtered to the next generation in the best way possible.
You, Mr. Gibson?
I'm going to start by saying 94. $94 billion is the amount budgeted for the education sector this year. If that is not a clear indication of government's commitment to developing the education sector, then I don't know what else is. But I feel that the current education minister is doing a fantastic job. We see her out and about. We see her in the different schools. And that's important. People want to feel the presence of their minister on the ground doing their job. And we're definitely seeing that. I mean, it's not just rehabilitation of schools, but we're seeing the building of new schools. Like Shaquawn, I'm also a product of St. Joseph High. And I can remember just last year I visited the school. And what I remember St. Joseph High being prior to 2014 and what it is now, it's completely changed. And I'm seeing development in the infrastructure. I'm seeing changes in the quality of the curriculum that's delivered to our students. So definitely our education sector is on track to doing great things and to equipping the students of this nation with the necessary skills that they need to continue developing or continue contributing to our country's development.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been tracking the education system. The Minister of Education is indeed doing a fantastic job. But my next question to you guys is this. Do you think the secondary schools are preparing students fully for tertiary education?
I'm going to have to say a hard no. And I say this because as a current university student, I'm in a program with other persons, sometimes my age, sometimes younger than me. And the skill set that I have, or I would think sometimes is the bare minimum, is not reflected in other students, sometimes of no fault of their own. But there are simple things, simple mindsets, and the way that you apply yourselves in situations that I don't see reflected in all university students and all persons coming out of high school. Like one thing I don't think our education system currently has is some sort of financial literacy program. And that is so important in today's world. Simple things as learning how to apply for an NIS card or the importance of having a taxpayer identification number. These are things that we may write off as easy and, oh, I don't need that, or somebody will do that for me. But these are things that you don't learn in high school. And this can definitely be added to the curriculum. Even I've had the opportunity to interview persons coming out of school for jobs. And I can see the way that they present themselves, the way they write a cover letter, the way they prepare a resume. In many instances, if I'm to judge you on the basis of that, then I wouldn't hire almost any of them. None of them I would hire. So definitely our secondary schools can do, I don't want to say a little more, but a lot more in preparing students for the world out there.
Okay. You, Mr. Gill?
And I'm pondering upon the idea of what exactly secondary schools need to do to prepare someone for tertiary education. Because I'm thinking there's so much that already has to be done in secondary school that it's hard to even add anything to what already is being done. So if we are even going to talk about a discussion, what we would have to talk about the discussion on secondary schools preparation, what we have to really talk about is what is CXC, the Caribbean Examinations Council, putting forward as educational material for our students, and whether or not that's whether or not it can suffice in relation to their preparation for tertiary education. I know I'm one of the students that jumped straight out of secondary school into tertiary education, I feel as though, not with the best GPA, but I feel as though I'm doing just fine. But there are students who did secondary school and then did 2 years of CAPE and are now in tertiary education and aren't performing in the way that people would expect them to perform. And so I say that to say, a lot of times this comes down to a personal preparation or a personal level of preparation. You have to read outside of the information that you're given, expand your knowledge, be up to date with things that are happening around you. And I think that in and of itself, and of course, networking and having the right relationships and friendships, I think that is what prepares people for higher levels of education and for the world in general.
Guyana, I think, has a 2 or 3 tier secondary school system. You have those who go to QC and Bishops and maybe Bishop. Then the secondary ones, they go to St. Stanislaus College or St. Rose's College and so forth. And then the third, they go to South Rumbelt Secondary or something of the sort. Do you think that's what's hampering students?
I think that's an amazing question. No, and I'll tell you why I say that. I know tons of students who have not had the opportunity to be at QC, St. Stanislaus, Bishop's High, St. Joseph, which they should have wanted to go to, one of the best schools in the country, by the way. They've not had the opportunity to go to any of those schools.
St. Joseph, one of the best schools in the country?
Yes, and I stand on that, sir. I stand on that.
We are both these guys went to St. Joseph, that's why.
St. Joseph, okay. Go ahead.
They have not had the opportunity to be at any of those schools. But at the same time, they are developing rapidly and have the opportunity that many of the other students who have gone to these schools, quite frankly, don't have, and the capacity that these students don't have. Why is that? Is that because they were hindered in some way because they went to South Rumbelt or because they went to another school? It has to do, I think it has strongly to do with someone's personal agenda. And mind you, I do not negate the fact that there should be adequate facilities at these schools, just as you would find in Queen's College. And I see Queen's College every 2 days putting up a new facility, which is good. But Queen's College, St. Stanislaus, St. Joseph, those facilities that are there should be extended to the students of South Rumbelt, should be extended to the students of Carmel and Dolphin Secondary, so that they have the opportunity as well to thrive like the other students. And what happens many times, and I think this is a well-known fact, a lot of students that end up at Queen's College, because they have access to all of these opportunities, many times a lot of them take it for granted. And then you have the students at South Rumbelt who don't have that much, who don't get to fall back on this lab and that lab and all of these other facilities, but have to go out and do the actual and the hard work. They are the ones that thrive and push through challenges and all of these things. And so my position on that is not that these tier level schools and grading schools is what has the real effect on people. It is the fact that students and children many times come from an environment too where education is not prioritized, and so their performance it reflects that very clearly. But if that environment is there and students want that development and progress for themselves, I promise you will see it. I promise you that.
Mr. Gibson?
It definitely comes down to the individual and not necessarily the schools. I can recall when I was in high school, many of my friends either went to the more prominent private schools or they went to one of the what we call the senior secondary schools, anything from QC right down to Joseph. When I got into the world of work, some of the highest or the senior level managers did not go to the top schools, did not go to some of the best schools in Guyana. But it was the way that they applied themselves that they were able to leverage their skills and their education and benefit from some amount of success. I'm not discounting the fact that there are circumstances where facilities are not available at certain schools and therefore facilities are available at others, and it might give that particular school a leg up. But let's also remember that government, yes, invests equal resources across all of our secondary schools. But many times when we see the fancy labs and the libraries being commissioned at new schools, oftentimes it's not because of government resources, but it's because of past students that are investing in those institutions.
Yeah.
It's certainly not only government investing. So I don't think that it is a case where because you went to Dolphin Secondary means that you're not going to excel as much as the student that went to Bishops or to QC. But again, it comes down to the way that you apply yourselves. And like Shaquawn mentioned, there are many instances where in certain families, education is not just a priority. I've heard parents say, he can leave school at Fort Farm and he can go learn a trade or sign up at TI. Not to say that anything is wrong at TI, but they're not even giving that child the opportunity to write CSEC and see what the results will be. So again, having a tiered system or there being a tiered system, it doesn't necessarily affect the outcome of that child's success or lack thereof.
Both of you said something before when my colleague Charles asked you the question that people should be employed in Guyana based on the qualifications and experience. But you all should know that's not really the case in most of the Caribbean countries. Based on your party affiliation, you get a job. In North America, it happens. But what happens in North America and the developed countries, I can tell you that because I did a review on them, is that if you are qualified and you're a party person, they put you in an area where you fit the best, where you're qualified. But in Guyana and other Caribbean countries, they'll take a guy from a taxi driver and put him in economics or put him in finance or something because he's a party affiliated person. That trumps education in Guyana and other Caribbean countries. Now, I could speak of Jamaica, I could speak of Barbados, I could speak of two other smaller islands because I did report on them. People in many positions are not qualified, but they have strong party links. What you guys have to say to that? Mr. Gibson?
I'm going to start by saying that I'm not going to reject that statement in that, yes, it does happen. But at the end of the day, when a job or a vacancy is advertised, you feel that you have the necessary skill sets, you feel you have the qualifications for that role, there's nothing stopping you to apply. And sometimes I often hear people say, I don't want to work there because they can only hire Indian. They can hire me black. But oftentimes that's you giving yourself a no before you even try. Yes, there are instances where persons are hired because of party affiliation, and this is certainly and should not be the case. But at the end of the day, we all have a responsibility if we're interested in a job to make the application. It's either you get it or you don't get it. But if you feel that you were not selected or you did not advance in the application process, then in every organization, public and private, there are mechanisms for recourse. But to outright say that, in Guyana, you only get hired if you know somebody or if you're affiliated to this party in government or that political party, then I'm sorry, but that mindset can't hold, it doesn't hold any merit. And the reality is quite different. I've applied for jobs, every single organization that I've applied to and I have worked with, I did not know somebody at that organization. I just wanted a job, there was a vacancy, and I applied. And I've had relative success throughout my working years so far.
You, Mr. Gill?
I don't subscribe to that view. I don't subscribe to that view, and I'll tell you why. In any part of the world that you go, the majority of the senior positions in any country are filled by persons who are favored by the ruling party. That is politics. That is what I don't know if that's what politics has always been. I would believe that what it's always been, but that is what it has become. And whether or not it should be like that is a debate that can be had. But the fact is, this does not negate the importance of education. I'll give you a perfect example. someone who in the former administration was a minister of government is now, who is obviously no longer a minister of government or in government, now works with a renowned international organization, not because of political affiliation, but because of the fact that she was qualified all the way through and could have easily switched from the political life, being in a position because she was politically affiliated, and now working with an international organization simply on the basis that she is qualified. And so political affiliation doesn't negate the fact that you should be qualified. It doesn't negate that at all. But what it does speak to is something that I mentioned earlier. There is also an importance of networking, and mind you, not nepotism, but networking that is critical to any person's success. You can't wake up out of nowhere with 16 degrees and walk into a job and expect people to suddenly trust you with all the money that they make every single day, every single year, no matter how many degrees you have. It is about your integrity, who you are as a person. And the only way people know you like that is through networking. And so that is still a very important component.
I agree with what you all are saying, but I have did some studies on that in a number of countries where people who are qualified were overpassed or bypassed for someone less qualified because it's happening in Trinidad. I did a review of that. It's happening in Barbados. It happened in Jamaica, where I'm an advisor to the government there, and other smaller countries. I've done that. I've done the review of it, and I'm about to publish a paper on it as well. So Guyana is not exclusive on this, but it happens. Anyway, my next question to you guys is this. Do you believe University of Guyana should be free, given the amount of money we're receiving now from the oil?
I presume
Yes.
you want me to answer first.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Gill.
Education anywhere and everywhere should be free. I don't see why anybody should want to or have to pay for education. If you're asking the question whether or not it is an economically sound decision, no, that would be a different discussion to have. But we know that the government, the current administration, has promised free University of Guyana education within their first 5 years, whatever that may mean. And we are looking forward to the fulfillment of that commitment. They've made commitments before and have followed through on those commitments. So I have no doubt that they will now. But looking at tertiary education and asking the question whether or not it should be free has to not only be a decision based on emotion or a decision based on what we think it should be, but it also should be a decision that is premised in what is also best for the country. Can the University of Guyana still run effectively without the funding of tuitions? If we are to input oil and gas resources into the University of Guyana, will that be sustainable? Can it be a sustainable decision? Will, even after we transition from fossil fuel, the world transitions from fossil fuels in the next few years or the next few decades, will we still be able to manage that, or will we have to again return to tuitions so that the University of Guyana can run effectively? If tuitions are removed, will the facilities of the University of Guyana still be operational, fully functional in a manner that is of optimum value to the students of the university? Can it continue to be refurbished and improved even though tuitions will not be there? So there are a number of questions that I think have to be answered by government. And I would presume they would have answered, giving them the benefit of the doubt. I would presume that they've answered all of those questions, and that is why it's a manifesto promise of the current administration. But those are my considered thoughts on that.
You, Mr. Gibson?
Yes or no depends on sound economic reasoning. Because like Shaquawn said, at the end of the day, can we make the University of Guyana free and still be able to maintain the level and continue to improve the level of education that's offered by the university? Because it makes no sense that for us to make education free, make the University of Guyana free, no tuition, but then you don't have sufficient lecturers or the infrastructure and the facilities of the university, you cannot afford to sustain them. And government has to continue pumping millions, if not billions each year. It doesn't work out. But I would assume that government, given that they made this promise, they're committed to it, and either way, they're going to find the resources necessary. But I'm also going to say yes from another standpoint. I'm thinking about the benefit that that brings to the thousands of students that are graduating from secondary school and from Cape each year that wants to enter the University of Guyana, and currently may have to delay that decision because the University of Guyana is not free.
Okay.
If I can add before, there's also the important component of the quality of education too that you have to answer. Will the quality of education diminish because now, and this is not disputing Mr. Gibson's point and the importance of that, but if you are to make the University of Guyana free, does that in any way diminish the quality of what is going to be happening? Can anybody pick up themselves and walk into the University of Guyana and say, I want a degree in chemical engineering, or things of that nature? So that is also something that you have to take into consideration. Will there still be a desire for people to want to go to the University of Guyana? Will it still be competitive in the educational market in terms of people wanting to come to the University of Guyana? So that's also important to take into consideration.
A very valid point. Sorry for that. But a very valid point, Shaquawn, because just allow me to sidetrack for a moment and look at the healthcare sector. Access to healthcare is free at Georgetown Hospital, but how many of us actually choose that as our primary healthcare facility? And we certainly don't want that to be the case with the University of Guyana. It becomes free, but then everybody ends up running to a private education provider as opposed to going to the University of Guyana. So we should make it free, but at least we have to maintain the quality and continue to improve on that quality of education as delivered.
I have two short questions for you guys before my colleague comes in. There's one country, I think, in the world that exists. You can go there, I can go there, my colleague Charles can go there, and just go and register at the university and be getting there free and do the program. You don't have to be a citizen of the country. You don't have to be anything. Which country is that?
Which country is that? I don't know. Oh, yeah. I have no idea. I have no clue.
Germany.
Not for me.
Anybody can go to Germany, any university in Germany. Just enter the country, go to university, and you can do the program. But you'll have to learn the language.
You don't have to go. I think their German universities has also won the Gold Scholarship program. So you can get it right here as well.
Online now. They have courses online now too, I know. But you can go there and you don't have to pay a dime for university. My second question to you guys, what determines the credibility of a university, the rating of a university?
But let me say though, and before I answer that question too,
there are only two things.
Yeah, before I answer that question or attempt to answer that question, let me say, you have in terms of the previous conversation we were having, you also have to look at where Germany has come from over the years, and I may be wrong, but I'm sure that has not the free university situation has not always been the case in Germany. I'm sure, and I can stand corrected.
No, it started in 1977.
Started in 1977, and that is a country that has been around for quite some time. So that is also something that has to be taken into consideration.
World War II and so forth, it came out of it, and that's what it did. So what determines the rating for a university? Quickly, we're running out of time. Anyone of you know?
Definitely the academic performance and the graduation rate, I'd say.
The academic performance and the programs.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only two criteria determined, because we have to be accredited here, and sometimes I'm involved in putting through programs to make sure we get accreditation. Every 4 years it's being done. Anyway, Charles, over to you.
Gentlemen, we run out of time. We really enjoy your discussion. I'm sorry, young lady, we had no young lady in the program tonight, so we apologize to the young lady. Should be here as well. But you two guys represent the young people of Guyana, amazing, and you did an amazing job. We want to thank both of you. And Mr. Gill, when are you returning back to Guyana?
I'll be back in June.
But then you're missing the semester in university?
No, my course is fully online.
Oh, fully online. Okay. Well, in closing, Mr. Gill, anything you want to say to us, because we now only have a minute to go.
All right. Let me say that for those who are attending University of Guyana, the UGSS is firmly committed to ensuring that students' concerns and challenges are addressed. I want you to know that maybe for the first time ever, every single faculty rep and the president and the seniors and everybody is completely, everybody is accessible. All of our information is on the University of Guyana Student Society Facebook page, phone numbers, emails, everything. What we are also working on is establishing a website where there's going to be a student complaint system where you're able to input all of your challenges and concerns, and we address them right within that framework. And that's just one of the many capital projects that we're looking to implement that will further develop and benefit the lives of all students now and students to come sometime in the future. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And I think the UG has done a great job in appointing you or selecting you as the president for the council. You're doing a really remarkable job. Keep up the good work. Mr. Gibson,
thank you.
Anything in closing?
Yes, the resources, the information is out there, whether it's University of Guyana, whether it's the Board of Industrial Training, whatever skill and education you want to arm yourself with, the resources are available out there. And I cannot stress the importance enough of an education. Again, like I said earlier, it's the one thing that can be taken away from you. So to anybody out there, I mean, it's just about getting up and making that first move, getting yourself informed, getting yourself equipped with the knowledge and the resources necessary, not just for your benefit, but for the benefit of your country.
Thank you. Dr. Rose, anything in closing?
Yes, in my closing, I can say for sure, you guys got me all, I don't know. I'm stunned. I have to say thanks to Dr. Cummings, Emmanuel Cummings, for recommending you, Mr. Gill, and in turn, you recommend Mr. Gibson. You guys are extremely two brilliant young men. As I said, I don't know where I went wrong with my education. Maybe UG, I should have to reconsider UG, come and re-educate myself like you guys. Anyway, having said that, I think you guys have done an outstanding job, seriously, and I know you guys are gonna go out and do go about and do major things in your life, because you all are very, very ambitious, well-educated, and will move to achieve major stuff. The one thing I will say though is that I want to say thanks to Madam Pierre Manican for what she's doing in education, and she's doing a fantastic job, which all you guys, both of you, did say as well. So those are my comments tonight.
All right, again, Mr. Gill, safe trip back to Guyana, and I hope you have a really great time there in China. Mr. Gibson, thank you for being the program. To our audience, we want to thank you for being here. And until the next time, God bless our great country of Guyana. Thank you so much.